Just 2 more Twilight movies, people, and we can put my revisited reviews to rest. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Twilight Saga re-review series. This time we're going to be concluding this with the 2-part finale. But this is the most inconsequential one. The Twilight Saga Breaking Dawn Part 1. Out in the year of 2011, which was a pretty decent year for films. Not the best, but it was pretty decent. And this was directed by Academy Award winning filmmaker Bill Condon, who has directed stuff like Gods and Monsters. He's wrote stuff like Chicago, and he directed Beauty and the Beast. And one of my favorites he's done is Dreamgirls. Sees everybody coming back, except for a few. Kristen Stewart, Robert Pattinson, Taylor Lautner, Billy Burke, Peter Fasinelli, Elizabeth Reeser, Kellen Lutz, Nikki Reed, Jackson Rathbone, Ashley Greene, Anna Kendrick, Jamie Campbell Bower, Casey LeBeau, Michael Sheen, Christopher Heyerdahl, Charlie Bowie, Boo Boo Stewart, Julia Jones, Mia Maestro, Kristen Camargo, and Mackenzie Foy. This one, if you're looking at me in the face, why I'm smiling like that, because we get to another one of these movies in the Twilight series that I do not like. Even though this whole series is a guilty pleasure. I've been saying that since the first review. In early 2008, Summit Entertainment got the film rights to the remaining books in the series. And so talks about this started after they approved Twilight Saga New Moon and Twilight Saga Eclipse. So they had every intention to make the film version of this. But this time, Stephanie Meyer was going to be a producer. And she said if this movie was to be created, this would have to be into 2 parts. Pretty much stealing the trend of what the last Harry Potter movie did. And it worked so successfully, and what every part 1, part 2 has been doing, especially Dune, which is no longer a 2-parter because it's a trilogy. Announced in 2010, before Twilight Eclipse come out, this would be a 2-part film. One would come out in 2011, and one would come out in 2012. And despite a lot of mixed to negative reviews, this was the 4th highest grossing movie of 2011. The movie got a lot of negative reviews for the, and I remember people's expectations were very hype. A lot of people were very excited, but there was a lot of people who was very nervous about how they were going to do this, because this was the one that has Bella being a vampire, and also you having to deal with the situation with Renesmee. And this will also see the one where we have to either deal with the movie being PG-13 or rated R because of the pregnancy and the honeymoon scenes. This movie came out, a lot of audiences mostly enjoyed it, but the critics were not too nice on it. And this is basically how a reassessment over the years with the fans, with some still liking it, but some still saying it wasn't that good as I thought. I remember when I first watched this, I liked Twilight Eclipse and I liked the first movie, okay. I didn't like the second movie, but for the longest time, I used to be a defender of this movie. I would say, wait guys, there are some good things in here. This is not a completely terrible movie. But the more years has gone on and the more times I've watched this movie, I haven't watched this movie since 2021. I have to come to terms right now and say that Breaking Dawn Part 1, Breaking Dawn Part 1 is the second-handed worst Twilight movie for me personally. Like I said, these might be a guilty pleasure, but this is not as bad as Twilight Saga New Moon. I'll say it, I'll be honest with you with a straight face and say it, but this is the one that is the least consequential. This is the most boring and the most inconsequential of the Twilight films. The first part of Breaking Dawn Part 1 talks about Bella and Edward when they get married at last, and Jacob finds out that she wants to spend her honeymoon as a human, and he becomes increasingly angry and horrified. for Edward's passion could accidentally kill her. So Bella does indeed survive the honeymoon, but a new complication arises when she discovers that she is pregnant with her first child. And the child is growing at an alarming rate. So basically it's doing pretty much everything. It's breaking her bones, it's crushing her from the inside out. And we have to deal with Bella making the choice, does she want to keep the baby or not? And the pregnancy sends Sam and his pack of wolves against Bella and Edward, but Jacob vows to protect his friend with the help of Seth and Leah. That whole plot synopsis takes up an hour and 15 minutes. An hour and 56 minutes of the movie, or 2 hours and 4 minutes, which is 8 minutes longer in the extended cut, which is the one I decide to watch for the review. That whole plot you could easily do in the first 45 minutes and have the second half attached to it. But let's go into the positives, because there are a few things I like in this movie. I will say this, for as inconsequential as this movie is, the few action set pieces that we do get, which you have an infamous scene which has been the most talked about thing with the werewolves and the vampires, the Cullens, after Bella has her baby. I think that's actually really good. That's actually a very entertaining action scene. Of course, there's not much action, but in that last couple minutes of the movie, that was cool. I like the scene with the werewolves. I actually like when Jacob says, no, I will not fight, I will not kill my friend Bella, I'm not born to protect you or anyone else. Him being his own man. There's a problem I have with it, which we'll get to later on, but I do like that. Score and the soundtrack of these movies is always great. I love the score of this movie. Carter Burwell just goes completely full force with it. It's great that they got him back to do this last one. The score is incredible. I love the music here, especially when it comes to the moments with the baby pregnancy. Those moments is a great mix of drama, action, and a little bit of horror, with the horror vibes they give off with the pregnancy sequence. The soundtrack is amazing. I love the songs in these films. You have, this time, you have The Joy Formidable, Angus and Julian Stone. You have Sleeping at Last. You have the infamous 1,000 Years, which I admit, when this movie first came out, I didn't really care for the song that much, but over time, I really enjoyed that song. I think it's beautiful. You have the Bell Brigade, Noisettes, Cider Sky, Iron and Wine, Cold, plus sung by Aqualung and Lucy Schwartz, and Carter Burwell and Mia Maestro. But my favorite song in this soundtrack is Bruno Mars' It Will Rain. I love the song, It Will Rain. I'm a big Bruno Mars fan. Mars is awesome, and I like the lyrics that it talks about. It talks about agony and torment of a heartbreak in its various stages, and just the lyrics are very catchy. This is one of those Bruno Mars songs, or one of those songs in general, that anytime I get to listen to it, I just want to sing along to it. I almost sung along to it watching the end credits, because that's how much I love the song, and I love Bruno Mars. Wedding at the beginning of this movie is beautiful. I like the way the wedding looks. It looks visually beautiful. The cinematography by Guillermo Navarro throughout that and this entire movie is really well done. The production design by Richard Sherman is fantastic. But it's just the wedding scene is fantastic. I like the way the dresses look, the tuxedos look. And Bella's dress, no matter what you think of the character or Kristen Stewart, you have to give credit. That wedding dress is really beautiful. Most of the cast, once again, is good. Some of the cast who's been here all along does a good job. I even like the fact that they give Julia Jones and Boo Boo Stewart more to do, especially Julia Jones, which I definitely really like the fact they gave her them more to do. And I definitely really like a lot of the cast here. There are some new actors like Casey LeBeau and Miana Buring and Mia Maestro and Kristen Camargo and Maggie Grace, who I think is an incredibly underappreciated actress. Should be in a lot more stuff. Definitely deserves a lot more respect. They do good, and even people like I praised in the other ones, like Nikki Reed, Billy Burke, Ashley Greene, Jessica Rathbone, they all do good. And controversial opinion, I will say these last two movies, I feel like this is Robert Pattinson's best hour as Edward Cullen. At the point, he's been a little stocky and a little such, but he, of the two men, Edward and Jacob, I will say he's the one is the most calm, and he's the one who just will not give up on Bella. And even when she's dying, and when he chose everything to revive her, which great effects work when you go inside of Bella's body and you see the more venom spreading. That's great. I love Bella's transformation, the CGI, the dummy usage and practical effects, and the use of Kristen Stewart. All of that for the $127 million budget, and some of the effects, like the wolves a few times, that pregnancy and the whole transformation where her body just shutting down and deteriorating, that's great. That is great work. I definitely give credit to them. For the final positive is the pregnancy scene. That the very thing that everybody was worried they would fuck up, they got that right. And it was pretty hard for fans and critics speculated because of the adult nature, because this is the most serious book, but these last two are the most serious films. I definitely give credit to where credit is due. I think that is awesome in terms of what they can do with. The pregnancy scene is executed well. You see it from Bella's point of view. That way they won't get too violent with it. Everything that you're seeing, she sees. And just the tension in that, the music in it is just, whew. I'll tell you this. This scared the shit out of me rewatching this. It scared the hell out of me when I first saw it. As a 25-year-old man, that pregnancy scene still scares the hell out of me. So, congratulations, Breaking Dawn Part 1. You have some positives that stops me from giving you the worst grade. Unfortunately, that's all I got for positives, because let's talk about some decisions here. Big decision number one. The dumbest decision to split this into two parts. I get it, this is the most mature book and you have to make sacrifices and you have to make a decision. But the fact that you decide to split this into two movies just for money. And this is the one of the first two parts. This is the one that is not the most interesting. Aside from Bella, Edward getting married, the honeymoon, Jacob being his own man, and the pregnancy. Because everything else here, it feels like, and I have looked this up, this is true, they added a lot more stuff to have tension, which is fine, by the way, if they actually justify themselves a little more. But I just feel like the way they decided to go about this is not very well handled. It's not very well executed, and I don't blame Bill Condon for this. It all comes down to the script being very boring and such, and it's not as interesting as it should have. Had you had more moments of tension and action, this first part would be like, okay, we fucking in, all right. This is the most inconsequential of the two, and it's also the most boring of the two. Not much emotional stakes in this movie here, which I'm sorry, there's not a lot going on in terms of this movie. There's moments where the movie wants to get emotional with Bella and Edward fighting over the decision that Bella keeps to keep the baby. She wants to keep the baby, but he doesn't know if he could tolerate it if it killed her. And then the moment where he's like, "You giving me no choice," which I'll say is a little laughable, but at the same time I get what it was coming from, because you're married and y'all should be making the decision together. This is a life or death situation, so no, we can't. There's a lot of moments in this movie where it's interesting here, and there's a lot of moments where they don't go anywhere. Why is that a problem? If you're gonna have something with the wolves wanting to kill the baby, Jacob being his own man, this whole pregnancy crap, make it more interesting. And I think there's a way you could have made this more interesting if you had a secondary writer being like, we need to take some of this here. And this romance is supposed to be the epic finale. There's moments where it's very draggy and very boring. Now, I've seen this movie multiple times, even with the director's cut. The extended cut is 2 hours and 4 minutes. Grant, they put back Arrow and the Volturi in at the beginning, which you should have kept them in the first. But there's just a lot of moments in there, which one moment especially, which I definitely do like, where Edward just disarms Jacob's hand and throws him into the wall because he knew he imprinted. I like that part. The moment when Jacob throws food in Rosalie's hair, that was just unintentionally funny. It's good, it's unintentionally funny, but it was one of the few chuckles I got watching this, because there are some unintentionally hilarious things in here. But the pacing of this movie is so dragged out, you can't even enjoy the moments where it gets interesting. And that is my biggest issue with this. When it comes to the pacing of this, had you would have made this a little more like the next one, where it's so campy and such, we'd be epictastically awesome here. There are moments in this movies where characters act completely out of sight. That's not new here for this franchise. You have, of course, like I said, Sam thinks the baby is in danger, and the other wolves are, when they sworn to said, it's not our concern anymore. You're not going to start something that we'll have to finish, Jacob. When they find out about this baby, they're like, we can't allow it. It's an abomination, destruction. And Sam's like, we have to protect the tribe. Which I'll say, it's a cool scene seeing the werewolves telepathically talk. But it's just the way it comes off. It's like, Sam, you're acting out of character here. I know you're scared about a vampire baby, but Jesus, they don't know what it is either. So that is a big decision that I thought was stupid on their part. You also have Alice acting out of character in this, which Ashley Green, credit to her, she does a good job. Beautiful still too. You have her acting out of character because she can't see Bella's future and says the fetus is not good for Bella. And then you have Rosalie, who actually wants Bella to have the baby so she can have, because she never got to have one herself, until you get to the part where she is desperate for the baby's blood and Alex has to grab her and take her out of the room when she's giving labor and when Jacob punches her. So characters acting out of sight, not to mention you have some very abysmal dialogue at points. The writing in these movies has never been the strongest points, and this is the dialogue at its most worst here. It comes off cringeworthy, unintentionally hilarious, and abysmal, and borderlines embarrassing. You know what? All of that can be forgiven. That can be forgiven. I can let it slide. I can even give you the benefit of the doubt on it, because these Twilight movies always have problems. All of those can be forgiven. All of that could be interesting. I could let it go, and I could let it slide. What I can't fucking tolerate, what I will not fucking tolerate, what I will not fucking defend, and what I will never understand people, even Twilight fans, books, no matter who the hell tries to defend this, and why I'm going to say it on camera, right here, right now, about how awful Jacob as a character is in this movie, especially these last three. Especially in this movie, Jacob imprints on a newborn baby. Let me say that again so you can hear me. A grown-ass werewolf man imprints on a half-human, half-vampire, newborn fucking baby.
Out there.
Just cue the clips. Cue the clips.
What the fuck is this?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard.
Little pervert! Oh man, he's deep shit.
Too late. It was literally the first thing I did.
Ew. Don't try it.
I understand this is in the books. I understand why they imprint. I understand why the wolves imprint. That way, whoever a wolf imprints on can't be harmed. I understand a part of that. I can see some people defending that. I understand why some people will defend that, even book fans. But it seriously irritates me. Even 12 years later, Jacob imprints on a newborn baby. This man imprints on a fucking baby. Did Stephanie Meyer didn't think about how fucked up this is?
One horrible idea after another.
It's incredibly fucked up. How are you gonna have a freaking werewolf, grown-ass man imprinting on a newborn baby? I know it's in the books. I fucking read the books when this came out. But that doesn't give you the right to imprint on a freaking child. In my opinion, that is freaking... That is disgusting, it's sickening, and it's bullshit. I understand this is a movie. I understand this had to be in the film. But Jacob imprinted on Renesmee. I could be on board with this. I could be fine with something like this if she wasn't a fucking newborn baby. That's the problem with this. Yes, I know she grows up to be an adult, half human, half immortal, but that doesn't make it right. That does not make the shit right. Alright? No. But if I was in charge of this movie, I would be like, what the hell, Stephanie Meyer? You're not gonna have a grown-ass werewolf vampire man imprint on a newborn fucking baby. Are you insane? That's what I would have said. Honestly, if this was me writing the script, I would have changed it to where he imprinted on Leah. But overall, definitely not the worst one in the series, but it is definitely the single-handed second worst one in the franchise. A few of this cast does great. The cinematography is good. I love the wedding. The pregnancy is great. The song choices are good. But this movie is hurt by the draggy pacing, characters acting out of sight, some very god-awful CGI at times, not that much emotional stakes, and the decision to split this into two parts for this first half is not very consequential and not very important. But I only watched this because I'm a completist of the franchise. Twilight fans will enjoy this if you can get past some of the issues I have. But if you're someone who does not like these movies, just go to Breaking Dawn Part 2. Easily the second-handed second worst. Not as bad as New Moon, but it's still not very good. But it is entertainingly hilarious for how embarrassing this movie is at points. If only for the few redeeming qualities. Well, that's gonna do it for the video that you just watched. If you want to see more, my channel icon is up here. If you want to see more content from me, all my social medias are right here in this end card. I will also leave a playlist and a video here for you to see what the channel is about. As always, acknowledge me, stay epictastic, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool.